Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Samso. It has been a while since we've put out Coffee with Samso, primarily due to us trying to get a new product onto the Samso platform. Samso News is the new product that we have put onto the Samso platform. It basically takes ASX announcements and put our Samso blog style onto it to give a discussion, create a discussion point of view, give readers a good sense of what the messaging is all about. So for those who have been following us and for those who have not been following us, please click on that button, subscribe to us, don't miss out on the info. We'll be pushing out Samso News in greater earnest in the coming weeks. We started publishing Samso News in early May, and we've been putting out a blog post every day of the weekday and a Samso Insight on Sundays. Today we are talking to Eric Starling, who is the Principal Innovation Advisor for Amazon Web Services. Eric describes himself as a product designer, strategist, innovator, and CX professional based in Perth, Australia. A man who thinks in images and built in code at speed. So Eric has 25 years experience in building web applications, designing user interfaces, and solving customer problems. Since 2019 has worked in innovation advisory at Amazon Web Services, AWS, leads complex high-impact customer engagements using AWS internal product building methodologies, co-created the Built Like Amazon portfolio and delivered transformative outcomes across 6 continents. Has worked across diverse sectors including pharmaceuticals, mining, oil and gas, financial services, and entertainment. Many projects are confidential under NDA, but Eric has led or contributed significantly to a range of strategic initiatives. So I think there is a need to learn the ins and outs of AI. So grab your favorite beverage and let's get comfortable for another episode of Coffee with Samso. Thank you. Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. We're here today at the UWA Club here in the campus of UWA, Samso Central as we call it. And we've got Eric Starling with us today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
The whole AI concept I thought was worth a discussion. I reached out to yourself and we had a nice conversation and planned this recording.
Yep.
So look, Eric, maybe just give us a quick bio of yourself, and where you sit, and let's get into talking AI.
Thanks very much. Yeah, my name's Eric Starling. I'm a Principal Innovation Advisor over at Amazon Web Services. That being said, this is just a friendly chat between the two of us and everything. And for about 25 years, I've been working in software design and development. And in particular, my focus over here in Western Australia is one around robotics, AI, and enterprise level software.
I mean, AI is a fanciful word, artificial intelligence. And when we first spoke, my query was, it's just coding with an umbrella word that kind of fits everything together. Mm-hmm. And we went about, you went about quite meticulously and very clearly running through how it works. So I guess first question, and I took this from ChatGPT to fit in with the thing, is can you give us a simple explanation of what AI actually is and what it is not?
Sure. So the most common understanding that we have today of AI is going to be through large language models. That's your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, and things along those lines. However, that's just a single facet of broader artificial intelligence, and we've had a number of different capabilities in artificial intelligence for some time. When it comes to data science as well as machine learning, anytime we're trying to solve a problem that is a bit too large for a human mind to kind of wrap itself around, we can programmatically go through that problem using machine learning, where the machine kind of figures out over time and through reinforcement processes what's the answers that it should be giving us versus, that we want it to dissuade itself against. What we're seeing now is more of the capability for AIs to respond back to us in a language that we're most comfortable with, our own. And as a result of that, these large language models with the transformers that was kind of one of the big things that OpenAI tended to unlock, is we can now converse with an AI in our own natural language. And that allows us to get answers back that are much more useful to the common layperson.
We're talking to the code, right? The language model is now giving us this platform, you want to say, for people like myself who are not encoding, to talk to something, code, to come back with the result. Whereas before, I would need it to understand all the computing languages. Is that fair comment?
Yeah, I mean, so, all forms of programming in the past has always been something that has a lot of minutia, a lot of syntax, and, if you didn't ask the computer exactly the right way in a very specific, focused request, you probably wouldn't get back what you wanted.
Like a command.
Yeah, like a command line, and if you put a semicolon in the wrong place, or you forget to close a bracket or something, the computer didn't know what to do. However, what we've got now is the ability from looking across a huge body of work, like effectively the entire internet, to be able to say, oh, well, the next most likely word or response in this message back to this human should be this. And it's done entirely through, it's effectively like autocorrect on steroids, right? Yeah. Whereas as you start typing a message, the computer can kind of guess at like what the next word is you might want to say. And much in the same way now, when I type in a message into ChatGPT or Claude or any of these others, I'm getting something back that is, one, like I'm not querying necessarily the code itself, because there's not really a degree of understanding. If I put out a question like, what is the tallest mountain in the world, right? The system can go out and look for how many other times has a question like this been answered. What are the most likely answers that have been come back? What are the different sources that have been accredited back to that? Can build that body of knowledge, and then based off of that, it can then write out a message similar to that autocorrect function. It says the highest mountain in the world is Mount Everest, located in Nepal.
So would it be correct in saying that the AI is looking for, if no one had said the highest mountain is Mount Everest, it wouldn't come back with an answer?
Very much so, yeah. So let's say we asked it, what is the tallest mountain in give it a fictional reality, right? Some
ABC country,
ABC space system or something like that, right? Yeah. It could come back and say, oh, I've never heard of that before, I can't give you an answer. Or if we did do something where we knew that there were only false answers out there, right? Answers that were incorrect, then it would most likely have found those false answers and brought them back instead. But there's not a cognitive capability where the AI is actually going out and reasoning, oh, well, based on these trigonometry calculations or this survey data, this is most likely the right answer. That said, you can absolutely build tailored agents that are capable of doing that degree of inference, but they're going to be much more specific and focused for that given work. But large language models, very much just kind of looking at the existing corpus that they've already ingested as part of like their main knowledge store, and then auto-correcting effectively the answer out of that.
When we last spoke, you gave a really good explanation of how AI works in terms of those 10,000 photos of a cat.
Yep.
It learns, and then on the 10,001, you go, here's a picture, and you don't tell it it's a cat.
Right.
It's going to go, oh, that looks like a cat, because from all the 10,000 photos I've had, it's a cat. Then the next one, it's a dog. The AI is going to go, well, it doesn't look like a cat. It does look like a cat. It's got 4 legs. It's a funny looking cat.
Right.
correct?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
its intelligence is by what it's learned.
Yes.
It's not like it's got a brain and it's figure it out kind
Right.
of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things that I was working with another company around here was they had workers that were going up to site that were they had a particular angle grinder that they really liked using. I think it's a really good angle grinder. It's really strong, and but there's some safety challenges around it. And all the companies are, particularly that are focused in mining and oil and gas, they're all really focused on safety. So one of the things that they wanted to know is, hey, could we, use cameras that we have around the workshops and identify whether or not people are bringing in these angle grinders and using these angle grinders that we don't want them to use? And, sure, there's a fair number of pictures of various angle grinders on the internet, and we could ask a AI model like, hey, does this contain an angle grinder or another angle grinder? But does it contain the XM109 or something like that? Would actually be a very hard thing for it to do based on photos just scraped from the internet, because they're most likely going to be product shots, that are going to be of a specific angle or, nice, clean, even lighting. However, one of the things that we did on such a project was we took the angle grinder, the dangerous one in question, and then we photographed it from nearly every angle, top to bottom, around the top, over the sides, gave it a mixture of different lighting conditions. We made that a separate body of knowledge, and we used that and said, this is the main thing that we're looking for. And now when the AI looks at those photos, what it does is it looks at a photo of the workshop and it's looking for little clusters of pixels that are similar enough to any of the other clusters of pixels that was in that body of knowledge. And now it can say, there's an XM109 angle grinder. That shouldn't be there. And it can flag that and notify someone, if that's the case. But again, you're talking about an instance where there's one, you've specifically generated a large amount of information about a specific thing. But when we think about cats and dogs, right, there's so many different flavors of cats, there's so many different flavors of dogs. So you can't just take perfect pictures of all of these. So instead you can just have a large body of, hey, cats fall into this kind of area, dogs fall into this kind of area. And we've even got that now with plants and all the leaf types and all of these other kind of things. And now we can say, all right, the sheer size of all of that is still searchable in a tiny minutia of time. And you can send a photo, to any of these AI models and say like, hey, what is the cat or dog or plant or whatever in this photo? And it'll come back and it'll be shockingly accurate, just given the vast, vast body of knowledge that it has to search from.
I guess, and you mentioned this as well, is that the AI is only here because of internet.
Yep.
Without internet, without the large amount of data that the internet allows, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
100%. So think about the fact that, and it's not just the internet; it's very much the cloud computing level of the internet. So when you think about the billions on billions of connections that go into a large language model, or the petabytes worth of data storage that's required in order for that model to search and run all of that. Not to mention the daisy-chained compute instances that need to rapidly course through that body of work. There's no way that we could have something on my phone, that would be capable of me snapping a picture of that tree over there and saying, hey, what's this kind of tree? And having that entire level of compute and performance in the phone. So all of this is done in remote data centers, all over the world. And those are all interconnected together with different redundant stores of information and different degrees of optimized compute performance as well, because not every query needs to go through the heaviest-handed model in order to come up with an answer. We can utilize more optimal chips, we can utilize more optimal cards, or even different software itself.
So we'll take your example of the plant. Is that internet freely available data that someone has created this agent to go out there and say, look at all this, compare this? Is that how it works?
it can work that way in a lot of these cases, and I think this is one of those interesting areas about AI is the great scraping of the internet has kind of already occurred and is also continuously ongoing, right? So when we say freely available, I don't want to make any assumptions around like, oh yeah, all of this stuff was just out there, and so the AIs went out and grabbed it all, and that was totally fine, because I think that there are still some really interesting questions around, the ownership of all of these different images and everything that went into informing these models. But effectively what's happened is, yes, that great scraping has already occurred, and a huge nesting of all of these different connections has been made on large language servers and models. And then that has all been optimized to a degree for these queries to be processed. As a result of that, yeah, in effect, you are going out and looking at all this stuff, but it's not the same thing as performing, say, like 10,000 Google searches for plant in southern hemisphere with thin leaves and then comparing all of those simultaneously. Instead, there's actually looking much more at clusters of pixelated information, cross-referencing that, and then saying, okay, what does this relate back to? Okay, therefore it must most likely be this plant, because these shapes show up the most in photos that are related to the, or in posts or articles or documents related to this. So again, it's not consciously thinking, oh, I wonder what kind of plant that is. It's much more just taking the most expedient path. And it's similar to the way that language works too. The idea of being able to say like, oh, how are you? I am fine. Things that our brain kind of automatically completes. It's the same sort of thing for an AI, which is saying, oh, this is the current path of the sentence, this is the current trending structure. I can fill in the rest of the blanks very easily.
So, a lot of this stuff has gone on. I mean, obviously, the speed in terms of where using AI, industry sector, business, is moving faster every day.
Yep.
Every other day is faster than the other previous day by magnitudes. Where do you think we are at this point? Are we are we still early in this growth? Do you see, especially in your industry and what you do, like are you seeing today you're doing 10 inches jump, whereas last year you could only jump 1 inch?
Yeah, in particular with agentic AI, that is something that we're seeing, an even more rapid proliferation. So when we think about the advances that we got with LLMs and just being able to have a chatbot that sounds pretty human and is able to look at specific bodies of work and provide detailed, not even analysis, but detailed answers to queries about that body of work, that was already a quantum leap forward. But now what we're seeing is a lot of businesses are saying, that's amazing technology. How can I utilize it to solve the problems that my business has today? And the agentic AI allows for creation of files, moving things around, operating switches, kind of interacting with things that have a very specific focus rather than I need an answer to any possible question ever, right? So, but now that we have both of those capabilities, we're seeing an even quicker ramp around, I have an idea of something that I think would be helpful and productive for either my business or for other companies. How quickly can I make that into reality? And with some things it can be less than a day. And with various different, and we're seeing a giant proliferation, I would say, of AI-based companies that have done just this thing. They've identified, oh, it'd be really handy if I had a tool that could help me sync audio together when doing video editing. Or it'd be really fantastic if I had something that could help me out with my grant applications for my local nonprofit business. So let me build something that I'll sell to other people that specifically does that kind of thing. And that will now I'm an AI company that has an AI product that I sell to other people. And this is really not all that dissimilar to some of the proliferation that we saw in the earlier days of the internet, where it was just, oh, I need to have a website. I might want to sell something to someone. I might want to allow them to contact me. I might want to allow them to, even buy a service that's consumable, online. And I think that we'll only see more of those. So I think we're still in the very nascent stages of this.
Okay. And I mean, one of the reasons we connected and I had this question was, what the narrative that's out there, what in your field, obviously you're in that field, what's the most misunderstood concept of AI that you are hearing? Goes, no, that's not. Well,
so I think cognition is probably the one that's still the most misunderstood. AIs can respond back to us with sentence structure and responses that really make it sound like they know what they're talking about, or that they've thought deeply about whatever we've just asked them. But the truth of the matter is, they haven't. Again, it's highly probabilistic responses based on what the AI has been exposed to. But it's not performing reasoning the same way that you and I perform reasoning. So when we ask for AI to help us with a bit of code, or to help us write an email, or something along those lines, effectively what it's doing is it's looking at its body of knowledge, and it's going through and saying the most likely next thing that I should put into this sentence is this. Or the most likely next bit of code that should be written is this. And again, that's based off of what it's already seen before, but it's not necessarily sitting down and thinking, oh, well, what is the best thing? If I have a deep understanding of molecular biology or programming or something else, I know that body of work, I know that science behind it, and I can use that to create a new and novel answer. But if effectively all I had was piles of textbooks, and all I was doing was going back through the textbooks and looking for a sentence that had already been written, and then copying the end of that sentence and replying it back, I don't get anything new from the pile of textbooks, really. So while we can create AIs that can do things like find protein sequences that humans have never found before, it's not actually doing the scientific research of understanding, say, like the interactions of physics or other things like that. It's looking at what it's already been told and then trying to find the best possible answer to give that back. So even though it might sound like it's thinking about it, it's not thinking about it in the same way that you and I are comprehending it. That said, we're seeing faster and faster developments in AIs that have reasoning models. So we'll have something that says like chain of thought reasoning, where you can see what the AI has considered as a response and how it's altered that before it comes back with the finished response. And that is incredibly insightful into looking at what data the AI is consuming to provide you its answer. But this isn't anything close to what artificial general intelligence is, which would actually be a complete mind that's capable of independent reasoning, rather than which is much more in common with what you and I kind of consider to be intelligence.
Because I think I was listening to one of the podcasts by Stephen Bartlett with, I forget the guy's name, but he was labeled the godfather of AI. Mm-hmm. And they talk about what you mentioned, that there is that level now where there's some sort of potentially reasoning models, you want to call it.
Sure, yep.
But I think, is it fair to say that, yes, it still needs to be data fed, right?
Yep.
The reasoning is not like you and I going, I wonder if I could cut that tree and transplant it with an orange and something that's never done before.
Right.
It's a data fed of information which then creates a pseudo thinking.
Yeah. So let's take like an example where we might ask an AI, hey, could I cut this particular tree and graft on a branch from an orange tree, right? And there's a lot of discussions. Grafting branches onto different plants has been something that's happened for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and so we've been able to. There would be plenty of examples the AI could look at, and it would say, "Oh yeah, absolutely." Like there's you could graft an orange branch onto that, but we would also know that's a hallucination because an orange branch and that particular tree may not have compatible internal systems, like the pH of the plant or the type of soil that it uses or the nutrients that it provides. Now, if the AI had a deep enough body of knowledge about that specific plant and a particular type of orange, maybe it could make that degree of reasoning. Like if we wrote agents to specifically say, check this, check that, check this, check that, and now provide your answer, then it would probably be fairly accurate. However, unless you have that tailored knowledge base and a specific set of agents that are meant to go through and do the thought processes that you and I might know of to check to determine whether two plants are compatible.
Going forward, I mean, what the industry, there are lots of industries that people talk about that's going to be overrun by AI. The call centers and all that. What's the least obvious one that you in your mind you think that no one has thought about that AI could actually, like even the legal profession.
Sure.
There are parts of it that quite obvious. I mean, I'm using AI to generate research or find me the links or what articles are out there, and then I'll go read it and stuff, right?
Yep.
But which is the one that that you think, in your opinion, could be the one that, I never thought about that?
It's interesting. Like, I think when we think about, like industries, being impacted, by AI, we tend to think about it in a negative context, right? These call center operators will be replaced by chatbots, or these paralegals will be replaced by large language models that will be able to query all the legal work ever done. But there's still a big factor of intent when it comes to creating anything. So some of the things that I kind of think about that I find that I think will be impacted. Like, let's take, for example, something, like entertainment production, right? Actors are, have, I think, are very well insulated in a lot of ways from AI. You could use, AI in a lot of CGI work, and I do think a lot of animators will be heavily impacted, with AI and, spatial generative spatial content development. But what I also think is really exciting is the fact that a lot more people will be able to create many more things at speed. And that to me is a different type of impact. If you can imagine all the various enthusiasts and fans about any particular topic, take Marvel or the Mad Max movies or any particular film franchise. There's people that spend tens of thousands of hours creating fan content, like for this stuff. And if those same individuals are now capable of actually building their own, producing their own movies rather than just text descriptions of what they would love to see, I think that in itself has its own vast degree of impact. And does that then turn companies like Netflix and others into where you're not seeing a conglomerate like MGM or Disney or others saying, yep, this is my walled garden, everything that's within this is mine, and I'll only push out the things that I myself make? I think we're going to see an absolute explosion of content that blurs an awful lot of intellectual property lines as all of these new creators are able to generate content that has similar levels of production quality to top-end movie theaters or top-end movie studios. And so that's something that I think is still That's an industry that I don't think has fully acknowledged what the proliferation of AI is likely, how it's likely to impact it. But I also think that humans themselves, just the ability to express the amount of information that we can in our voice, in our face, in our body language, and others, that human actors will still very much, be continuously employed.
The creation of emotion.
The creation of emotion, that degree of intent in expression, all of that is still something that I think AI struggles with, and we can only inform it so much. You can say, oh, I want somebody to look concerned or deeply concerned or shocked, right? So many different ways that a human could express that, and so many different ways that Samuel L. Jackson could express it versus Harrison Ford, for example, right? And as a result, I think that those people that, like those talents out there that are capable of all of these novel forms of expression will be very well protected. But the industry itself as a whole, I think they're going to be quite surprised by the sheer number of high quality content that other people will produce with these tools, and how it might rapidly flood over their market spaces.
Two things that comes to mind when you're talking there. One is, I recently saw on LinkedIn someone posting saying that Spotify had just created this fictitious group with all this music, and it's got so many followers, etc., etc. And the question was that, could these organizations start making their own content without paying anybody? And then the second one is, I think maybe it also shows what we are, what we feel is acceptable standard. You get the scenario where the guy says, I need to write a 2,000 word essay. ChatGPT, do this for me.
Right.
And then the guy goes, oh mate, this is you didn't write this. So at some point in time, I'm seeing, when I read articles and on specific headlines they talk about this, but you go in there, they skirt around the topic, they bring it up.
Yeah,
but
it's an awful lot of words and not a lot of signals.
Well, it doesn't even explain the heading.
Yeah.
Now, if we as people reading this and accepting, that's okay, then the standard drops, and then who gives a crap about how Samuel L. Jackson or Harrison Ford and this, and that's my thoughts, as you were saying. Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, I mean,
or are you seeing it happening?
Well,
already?
so like there is a proliferation of what's generally called AI slop, right? And much in the same way that various different automation tools allowed the creation of all these terrible banner ads that you see at the bottom of every website, right? Like the one trick doctors don't want you to know, or how to have millions of dollars in your, it's just another form of spam or slop. And that content is, it's compelling enough for someone to click on it, but has it drastically lowered the bar of human discourse? Has it made it so that people are no longer writing great books or making good movies or anything? No, I don't think so. So yes, I think that we'll see even more spam. I think we'll see an awful lot. It creates
a lot of confusion too, doesn't it?
It can, but I think there's. So like we talk about, you were talking about music there, right? And you can absolutely have AI artists that are, and I use that term pretty loosely, but you can have AI agents that are capable of stringing together bits and recordings, writing lyrics. But if you ever listen to some of them, they're really generic. I mean, like it might have, a good strummy Western vibe to it, and it might have a bit of that, crusty old cowboy talking about, the dust on the road and this, that, or the other thing. but it's not really saying anything when it comes to the song itself. And then you take like another song, which, like whether it like Eminem's "Lose Yourself" or other songs that you can really feel something come across, something that's the sum of more than just the words strung together.
Yeah.
And
the
again,
melody,
that gets back to that sort of like intent, right? There's the old Hemingway quote of like, writing is easy. You just sit down in front of the typewriter and bleed, right? And that's, meant to talk about, you need to be able to actually put your soul, your that unique quality of being human into the work. And just having a bunch of words on a page doesn't mean that the writing is done or that the writing is good. It just, that's the difference between, homework and art. And if anything, I kind of wonder if we'll see a higher appreciation of art in when there's a proliferation of what could just be called slop.
I mean, from the world of investing, which us at Samso, we deal with the ASX and businesses, and I discussed with you. I was recently at the Super AI conference in Singapore, and I learned basically it's like your words, a new ecosystem of AI.
Yep.
and different compartments. You got the machine learning people, you got the database people, you got the agents, which I learned a new word, what the agents were, things like that. And one of the things we discussed was robotics, and as I said, there was a panel. There was some guys from the States and one guy from China, and it really made it clear to me in my mind that the world of the Terminator thing. When you look at from the Western part, it's like, when can we make money? Whereas you look from China, it was like you can see them implementing it, and everybody just accepts it and move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I said to you when I walked out, I said, well, yep, I can't see this happening anytime soon, because there's a lot of barriers that we don't think about. Yes, you can make that robot do certain things, but one is that, well, from the Western world, which is everyone outside of China, if you can't make money, what are you doing it for?
Right.
And then you have this social impact of, will we accept these things? I mean, there's a reason why we still have pilots, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't think we dare to go into a plane where there's no pilots.
Right.
So yeah, I want to get your take on that thought.
Well, I think that China's more unilateral approach is one that's going to be really interesting to see the outcome of. We're seeing a huge proliferation of, like I said, kind of these little mini AI companies, right? Somebody that comes up with, a grant applying AI, or a, songwriting AI, or collection of agents that kind of help focus an AI to do these different tasks. And then they spin up a business and say, hey, for $30 a month or $15 a song or whatever, you can use my tools and see about creating different things. And that's, again, all in the pursuit of, making a bit of money, hopefully, getting acquired or going public or anything along those lines. Whereas I think China's looking at things quite a bit differently around, what can we utilize this technology to do? And we don't need to worry too much about, like whether or not it's going to make money or whether or not it's going to, be readily adopted by the populace. We can create new capabilities. And, when we're looking at tools with this amount of potential, it's something that I think should be considered, more thoroughly. The U.S. has done quite a bit recently with consolidating large, governmental data sets with the goal of utilizing AI to help prevent fraud, help to provide, better services, to its citizens and the like. But also at the same time, this comes with an inherent risk of, well, you've consolidated that information and you've now written prompts to access that information. What is the underlying reason for that? Is it to track down immigrants? Is it to reduce fraud? Is it to provide a better quality of life to your citizens? And I don't know if those questions have really been fully thought and considered at the moment. But in China, there's less a concern, I think, around there being public acceptance for that. And but it will be quite something, I think, in particular in military applications and government applications, to see just how much can be done in such a short period of time with tools and data of this capability.
I mean, that leads to the whole risk, ethics regulation concept of AI, and every time there's something new, we get that.
Yep.
So, what, everything that you know, everything we discussed, what do you think keeps you up or worried if you, where AI could go and just be Dennis the Menace,
I think, one of the there's absolutely great positive potential for an AI to do incredible work in the role of both like government and social services, right? If you can have an AI that is compassionate and looking for opportunities for people to get the most benefit from the taxes that they pay, then I think you've got a capability of great good. But on the flip side of that, if you have an AI that's focused purely around draconian savings, or trying to optimize government to the point of reducing its impact in terms of scale, right? It's the total scale of potential government impact. Then I think you've got the potential for something that's really quite scary, to be perfectly honest, just because now you've got a system that's potentially capable of shaving so many corners, off of so many different programs and public services, that you reduce the size of government and its potential positive impacts, on our lives. There's a reason we have government. We like roads, we like bridges, we like tunnels, we like airports, we like public transportation, we like, water supplies and things like that. And if you were to feed an AI a huge body of knowledge around this is what government is spending its money and resources on, you could see a great, use of, tell us what's the best way to implement this so that everyone gets as much benefit as possible. But you could also just as easily ask it instructions for, how do I minimize the amount of spending without killing or harming too many people? Which is, I think, a much scarier and draconic, kind of use of that technology.
Yeah.
I would much rather see, AI used for how best to improve the human condition rather than how to make it the most cost efficient.
Yeah. So what do you think, the most likely scenario 3 years from here, 5 years from here, 10 years from here, where would we sit with AI? Or is AI just going to flatten out? Because one of the things I've learned using AI myself, ChatGPT, on that very, very high level stuff, is it's still a function of rubbish in, rubbish out. And the guy who's doing it, is asking those questions, actually needs to be someone who actually knows what the answer should be. Otherwise, you could be just as easily fed the wrong answer as opposed to the right answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, so 5, 10 years, 15 years out, I think we'll see a massive proliferation of freely accessible agents that will be about as interchangeable as, various different, scripting tools or anything else that we utilize without even realizing it, right? Like when we go to a website, there's a whole collection of little programs running in the background, doing everything from tracking our cookies to providing a smooth scrolling experience to, like making the website a little easier to use for, different device, profiles. And we don't even really think about it. We just go to the Washington Post or the New York Times and we're like, oh yeah, I'll just read these news articles. I think that we'll see a similar proliferation of agents that will help to minimize hallucinations and to provide a little bit more guided structure so that ideally you're getting a little less garbage on your garbage out, kind of. But also at the same time, I think that we'll start to appreciate a bit more of what an AI is best used for. And again, it really comes back to this degree of intent of, am I just asking this AI to write an email to my friend because I can't really be bothered to respond and sort of think through, this is what I want to say. It's just, I haven't gotten back to him in 2 or 3 days. I need to send him something back. AI, generate a message that, says thanks and that we should catch up soon and I hope he's doing well, right? And that's not really intent, right? And if I got a message that I thought was written by AI from someone that was a friend of mine, I might think, oh, well, that didn't cost him anything. Like, he didn't actually put any thought or effort into this communication or response with me. Does that somehow cheapen this interaction that we just had? And I can see AI being used more towards creating things with intention and craft, so that I can say like, oh, I need to write, I should get back to him. Oh, you know what? His daughter was going through a hard time at school. Like, I should reference that. I should, also mention his wife, like, had that great meal that we cooked, and maybe if she could pass along that recipe or something like that. Now it feels more personal. And if we start utilizing AI more regularly in our lives, I think we have more potential for it to hook and prompt us to have more meaningful intent in things, everything from our communications to the tasks that we make. And that's honestly what I'm hoping more of is that by having the AI help us to consider more, that it's not just a matter of do this task for me, but maybe help me do it better.
What are people not saying about AI that you think they should actually be considering?
I think one of the things that a lot of people aren't considering just yet is that if you go online right now and you look up, oh, I want an AI to help me with this, that, or the other thing, video editing, creating good quality sound for a podcast or any number of different tasks, that all of these small companies actually own the queries that you're giving them, a lot of the data that you're passing along. And in an age of data brokers, where some of these small companies, they might only be in business 6 months, and then the guy who started it wasn't a businessman and blows through whatever funding he has or whatever angel investment, and then some private equity company comes in and just takes the thing apart and sells off all the bits. We've seen on this happen a huge amount in technology companies. Well, now those voice prints, those video captures, those all of the query history, that's all now a tradable asset that can be sold to other companies that may be more nefarious than the one that you originally did business with. And so I'm not trying to dissuade people from utilizing AI services. What I think people should be looking at is, am I an actual customer of this business, or am I part of the product that it's selling or generating as a whole? And if I am part of that product, do I want to be part of that product? What if it's sold on to somebody else? So I think that a lot of those companies can show you the capability of utilizing AI and what could be done, but I would never put them behind critical business functions or hang, like part of my business specifically off of them. Instead, I would identify what's possible and then sit down and ring fence my own data and utilize dedicated instances. And sure, that's going to cost you more money, but at least then you feel like you have more control over what you've put in, whether or not somebody else is going to be able to get it later, and if you are hanging business critical functions off of it, you know that you own the uptime for that service rather than being dependent on someone else.
I mean, I've also just realized that only because someone said it to me at the conference, that all the video contents that we make, you can actually sell it.
Yeah.
It never even occurred to me because they said, yeah, well, but I'm pretty sure that because they're all hosted on YouTube, anyone who wanted anything from it would have taken it already.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
even like, and maybe just the individual video clip may not be all that helpful to someone, but if, for example, like there was a lot of video clips, of you, or you had gone through and, generated a bit of a AI avatar of yourself through one of these companies, and then that company goes bust and they sell it on to somebody else that's maybe more focused on creating deep fakes or anything else. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, I really want a deep fake of Noel saying this thing, that thing, or any of this other stuff. Being able to query those different companies and say, hey, I want a deep fake of somebody that kind of looks like this from, say, like your LinkedIn photo. And they can be like, oh, yeah, I've got a great data set match, that I bought off of this other company for that. Yeah, I can get you really good deep fakes of something like that. And that's where I think more people should be cautious about what kind of data they're giving to these companies, and whether or not that data could be used nefariously in the future. But again, the easiest way to protect against that is to ensure that you're building these systems on your own dedicated inferences, like your own dedicated instances of a AI LLM model. These are all things that you could do on any of the major cloud platforms. I like AWS Bedrock, for example, but there's the capability of doing this where you still own the data doesn't leave your grasp, and when you don't need it anymore, you know that whatever you've captured and fed to an instance that you control won't be picked up by others.
Yeah, that's always very hard to monitor too, though.
Yes.
I mean, and then, and like you said, people move on and say, I can't be bothered with that stuff anymore.
Right.
And then I can scrap a bit of money off, or as you say, the administrator comes in and sells it all, and off you go.
Yep.
Look, it's been a long conversation. I think we could go on forever. There's just so much.
It's a really exciting topic. It's something that is changing daily, and I think it's something that a lot of people probably should be paying a little bit more attention to. I think it's easy to kind of sit back and sort of see what's going to happen, but right now there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, I would say, in being able to rapidly innovate on the forefront of this tech without needing to have an army of data scientists or others. I was recently speaking down in Mandra, at a more community, centric conference, and we had a lot of people there that ran small businesses or worked in local government and things like that, and just even simple things that can help automate, back office processes, or provide a better quality of life improvement to your customers, getting easier and easier to do without needing to bring in full-time web developers or anything along those lines to build this kind of stuff. And if anything, I'd encourage people to go on and have a crack with a fair number of these tools, because the learning curve has been brought quite low compared to where we were maybe just 18 months or 2 years ago. Like you said, you no longer need the same knowledge of syntax and programming. You can still get yourself into quite a bit of trouble, but what you can quickly identify, I think, is whether or not there's good opportunity to build something that would be really helpful to you, and then reach out and tap one or two people on the shoulder to help you make it secure and contained in something that you control.
I mean, just today, I've been, over the last few days, been learning the new ways of how Wix sends emails of my blogs out.
Yep.
And I found a novel way. I thought, this is fantastic, great, and I didn't realize it would send it out by itself without me needing approval. And then I forgot to change the title of the thing, and so I'm here wondering, when people receive it, the actual subject heading is something that doesn't relate to what the blog is, right?
Yep.
So those kind of stuff, like you said, that it's so easy, but you don't realize that it's done it. But again, that's the learning curve of, next time I do it, I know now that, hey, I need to change that first.
Mm-hmm.
So the easiness of doing things is incredible.
Yep.
Even from just the website management, sending emails or blogs, and can you imagine people who are selling products online? It's just become so easy to do. Look, Eric, fantastic. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure.
Any last words for the guys out there? Don't put your data online. A bit late for that.
Well, not so much of don't put your data online, but have a thought about whatever it is that you're potentially going to give out to another company when you're utilizing these tools, and almost put on a little bit of that black hat and think like, how could this potentially be used against me if somebody else got their hands on it? But don't let that stop you from embracing, this opportunity to utilize what could be some of the most powerful tools that humankind's ever come up with. So, just a very mild word of caution in a very exciting time.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Productivity even for us has gone significantly up a very steep slope. And as I've said, it's gone so fast. It's outpaced me trying to figure out to do it properly.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
And let's see if we can find another topic down the road. I'm pretty sure there will be.
Oh,
and
yeah, absolutely.
We can update the guys on AI and things like that.
Yeah, no, pleasure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.